Welcome, Eddie Izzard.
I feel like I'm at a desk. It's like work.
Right.
So no, I just never sat, because I haven't been on your program before, so I've never.
It's not like work. It's just fun.
I know. It's quite a nice desk.
With a desk.
I haven't fill anything. I haven't got bits of paper.
You can have a piece of paper. Here we go. There you go. Lovely. So what that clip that we saw there, was that your latest tour?
That's what I'm drawing doodles now.
We'll have them analysed after the show.
That's a rabbit.
In pig's clothing.
Sorry?
In pig's
yes, cats and fish clothing. That was a script which is, I toured it all over the place, and because I'm a relentless fool, but I'm going to do this thing, Laughs in the Park, which is an outdoor, because music festivals, ever since Woodstock, they've done them outside, and music's done that, but comedy there's quite often a comedy tent attached to music festivals, but not comedy on its own. They even have classical musical festivals outdoors, but we don't have ours. So this is sort of the first one, or one of the first ones, to get outside and do 3 comedians, myself and Dylan Moran and Reginald D. Hunter, all 3 comedians, all 3 nights, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the end of this month.
Herculaneum, though.
Yes, it's
very impressive.
Oh, Verlaine.
Very late.
What's
that in Roman?
It was in St Albans. It's in St Albans. That's where it is. And there's going to be fireworks afterwards.
I thought you were just using a big word.
I'm not too worried about the weather because, whatever happens, we're used to the weather. I'm going to stay on stage whatever happens. I mean, obviously, the weather can be a bit weird, but usually in September it's pretty good. July and August can usually go very bad for us. So it's a great experiment. Hopefully we're going to do it more in the future. And if anyone wants to buy tickets, they go to my website and it's all there. But it's going to be fun. I'm going to be there.
You'll have fun.
I just want to see it happen because if music does it, if classical music does it, they do films outdoors, but we don't do.
Do you have a subject you're going to start? Because what I love is that you talk and then you have a little pause and you think and then you go on. I mean, do you have an idea, perhaps a theme that you might start with?
No, I'm going to do essentially the show that I have been doing. I mean, most recently I was talking about everything that's ever happened from the beginning of time to Darwin and cavemen and I know roughly where I'm going. I ad-lib a lot because I just get bored of my own stuff, I'm the only one who sees all my gigs, if you think about it. So I just go off on tangents and talk about everything.
Well, I've seen one of your gigs, and it was the one where you talked about the whole history of the world and all this sort of stuff, and it was fabulous. And one of the things that was so great about it is you could tell it was just genuine enthusiasm. And I've read somewhere that you took on board something that Martin Scorsese once said, is that you have to make everyone else get as excited about what you're talking about as you are. Is that what you try to do with your topics?
Well, he said that's the definition of being an artist, is to get other people obsessed with the things that you obsess with. And I've realised that, I mean, if whatever you do as a creative person, you should put down stuff that you want to talk about that interests you, and then get everyone interested in that, hopefully.
Yeah.
So that's what I've done. There's a documentary actually coming out about this called Believe, which is coming out in November, which is a documentary of my life, which explains this and the marathons and everything that obsesses with me. Because if you want to understand how I did the marathons, you need to see Believe.
Because I don't understand how you did the marathons.
Well, it's
I watched that, and I can hardly speak to you. I'm so in awe of you.
Well, it's not...
Really, did any of you see it? It was the most incredible thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. I would say... It's easy, anyone can... No, after 15 marathons, it gets easier. This sounds really glib, but after 15 marathons, it gets kind of normal.
Really glib.
Well, but it's... Okay, our grandparents' generation, they had the Second World War, and these were people from the Allies, on the Allied side. They weren't the people who were brainwashed, they were Allied side, and they were from democratic countries, and they chose to go in, volunteer to go in and do things way beyond the call of duty, things they weren't expecting to do, and they did them. Not everyone did them, but a lot of them did amazing stuff, and that's what I can tap into. I'm quite good at arranging this to say, okay, we got an emergency situation, I have to do a marathon a day. I must admit, after 2 marathons in 2 days, I thought, actually, I could stop now. It's really I'm impressed myself. I've done 2 in 2 days, and then I did 3 in 3 days, then I did 4 in 4, and then it got weird. And there was a point where people wouldn't believe me. Like, I'd stop in a pub and say, can I use your loo? And they go, yeah, all right. And they say, what are you doing? I've just run 37 marathons around the country. And they go, oh, right.
Do you want peanuts with that?
Yeah, exactly. It was like I was saying, it was like just saying, I'd just eaten a car.
Yeah.
And they just couldn't take it in their brain.
Well, Eddie, you had a pit stop there. We're going to have a quick pit stop now. went to the break, we were talking about your mammoth marathons. That mammoth marathon makes them sound like they were longer than other marathons. There was just more of them. And where you got your mental strength as well as your physical strength. What was the program? There was a documentary series.
It's called Believe, the Eddie Izzard story, so you can't... So the Eddie Izzard story is... Well, it's the Believe thing, because I really did... my career didn't take off till I was 30, and I was ready to go when I was 7, so there was a big period here where, at 7 I decided I was going to act, and then at 30 it started working. So there was a long period of having to believe when nothing was turning out right. Everything was endlessly turning out wrong. So I'm quite good at... I have a lot of stamina in the pushing against... Yeah, and I do gigs in French as well, which was harder than the marathons. So tous les spectacles en français, c'est très difficile si on fait un spectacle dans une langue différente. And,
oui, bien sûr.
Oui, c'est difficile.
Très difficile.
Did you just say you had C. difficile? You had C. difficile. That's terrible.
Do you think that mental strength came from childhood or?
Well, my mum died when Alan was talking about bringing up 2 boys. My dad brought up me and my brother, and my mum died when I was 6. My brother was 8, and so we've both got between the 3 of us have got a very strong bond. And I ended up going to boarding schools, which wasn't the plan. And so we did become very independent. I know what a washing machine looks like. I can press the buttons. I actually prefer hand washing stuff, actually. That's quite primal.
Oh, no.
Well, no, I do.
Just put it to D. D's good.
I know. Well, cold water, I know that just why they have these different temperatures, I don't understand. But so washing up and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm not sure quite where the determination comes from, because I'm not quite the same personality as my brother. But I am determined to do things. I think it was because I was studying accounting and financial management, and I chucked that in so that I couldn't go back. I made it so that my only way was forward. I'm very good at flame throwing my bridges, so the only way is, I'm very forward.
That's really grown up, doesn't it? I mean, from what you went through when you were younger, you seem to be a very strong, focused man. And we talk about men growing up slower. In your instance, I'd say they're not, really. I'd say that you grew up very quickly.
Yeah, I find that, yes, I know this thing about women mature quicker than men, and that could be true, but I was thrown into a situation where, you'd better get your skates on, because Mum wasn't there and Dad wasn't there for half the time, because I was at this boarding school, so...
But would you find, a lot of men, would find it quite difficult they'll slam the door in a row, and I think when they're little they slam the door, and when they come back they hope everybody's cleared everything up, emotionally as well.
Yeah.
Did you have to kind of shut down a bit, and as a man, do you have to work harder therefore to open up a bit?
Yes, I very much shut down. I stopped crying at 11 very specifically because of, this is all in this documentary, Believe, because of I had an argument with another boy, and I realised I'd lost as soon as I started crying, because I couldn't stop crying. So I thought, crying equals losing, therefore no more crying anymore. And I blocked that. I mentally made a decision to close that off. And at 19, I had to rip it back open, because I realised I was emotionally dead. And I think a lot of the boys, maybe not necessarily the girls so much, but who go to boarding schools do become emotionally dead. Maybe the girls as well.
As a coping mechanism, would you say?
You just close down, which you'd see in places where kids become soldiers, child soldiers, or people who lose their parents, or whatever those situations. There's hella situations that happen around the world. They also close down and become emotionally closed. So you just have to have that gate open.
But then you found your humour, obviously, because you're a fabulous comedian.
Yes, so that was, I actually wanted to just be a dramatic actor, and then I loved comedy, and then I realised that you could write your own stuff in comedy, so that's why I pushed into comedy. And I couldn't do that initially.
No, I thought you'd come on today with your makeup on.
No, well, I'm in
nail
boy mode.
polish.
It's like a superhero. I am an out transvestite, so I have boy mode and girl mode, just like the Human Torch can be flame on, flame off. I can do girl on, girl off.
So you just get up in the morning and think, I'm going to be a boy today?
Yeah, well, that's how I'd like it to be, but but it's still, because there's so few people who are out in the transgender area, it's still, people say, so why aren't you wearing, there's a lot of politics, social politics that goes with it. So I'm in boy mode at the moment. I'm doing some roles which are going to be boy mode. So I tend to, people associate me doing stand-up in makeup, but in fact I'm just doing stand-up, but I can wear whatever I want to.
Are you ever threatened outside by people because ignorance is...
People have fights. I had a big fight with someone. I get people doing a whole lot of abuse at me, and I give them a whole lot of abuse back.
Is that because they didn't like the colour of your nail varnish?
No, that's just because they're homophobic.
on.
No, you touched on acting. You've done some very, very impressive roles. You've worked with some very impressive people.
Yeah.
No, you can get intimidated actually, and you just have to crank up your ego. And sometimes when I started doing filming, the hardest thing was a bit like you have here. You've got to get used to all this stuff here and ignore it so that we can just have a chat. But when I started doing filming, there were just mass people, lock it down, okay, do this, do that. And it just gets a bit like this, and that's not very good for acting when you're like this. So I realized just the more you do of it, the more you get chilled out. It's like, I played Madison Square Garden this year in America, and that's huge. That's an aircraft hangar.
Well, do you know, you'll never get bigger than coming on Loose Women. And we're glad you have. It's Eddie Izzard, everyone.